Vote or else. We're gonna hit the button right there, jump it off real energetic, because what we're talking about is something that's gonna affect all of our lives coming up here. We're going to say the first 4 years, but it's going to have after effects depending on which way you go, or if you depend on using your privilege and right to vote. We got the man of the hour, though. This man has created an incredible event, very impactful to get us ready to get out here and hit these polls. And I ain't talking about Magic City. Marvin Bing in the building. What's up, my guy?
Thanks, Reece. Thanks for having me, bro.
Oh, man.
Sound like him.
My salam. I appreciate that. Look, man, you have an incredible story. I heard you, kind of give my pops the rundown. But I also did, my little digging just to see who we talking to. And of course, for somebody to be able to put an event together like this, you had to be of somebody. You know what I mean? Right. So let's talk about this event real quick. Let's talk about you, and then let's get back to the event and why it's so important, and getting a celebrity involvement. I feel like this is like 1964 again, 1965. We used to have the Alis and the Malcolm X's and, the people of prominence that could drive and push the people forward. You're doing that again, man.
So, so I mean, the way we look at it is every day is 64 until things aren't 64 no more.
I like that. That's a T-shirt.
So, vote or else. A project of an organization I started called Mobilize Justice. And we sort of felt that, and not just this election cycle, every election cycle, you have these people that just pop in the hood, talk their stuff. Sometimes they don't even come to the hood because they feel like our communities aren't educated, aren't committed, aren't smart enough to understand the social dynamics that's happening in our country, and they don't even bother. So Vote or Else was sort of created to bring credible messengers to our communities, the hoods, the projects, for the brothers and sisters that's been in prison, for Black men who don't feel like they have a place in this new society, and really be focused and targeted, talking to us, from us, sort of built by us, for us type situation.
When people think about the hood, about the projects, or about people that don't look like a certain hue, right? They always don't give us that automatic credit, right? Sometimes they look at your track record or who you were before who you are today, and they don't give you that respect. But talking to you, I automatically know nobody should have that coming into the door.
No doubt. I mean, sadly, it is the case, though. I mean, even, I've been in the game, the political game, for some time now. Shout out to, again, Bill Lynch, Hazel Dukes, my father. And you'd be surprised at the social dynamics within politics, right? Even the way we dress. Like, our artists that we celebrate and we deem credible aren't getting invited to the White House to have brunch. Right. When last time you seen Beanie Siegel or Benny the Butcher at the White House? Right.
I can't give you a date.
So I'm saying. But again, in our communities, these are our credible messengers. These are our our storytellers, right? And these are the kind of people, the Michael Vicks, the Killer Mikes, Beanie Siegel, Icewear Vezo, 2 Chainz, etc., whomever. They are our storytellers. They're the people that we adhere to, respond to, take cues from, if you will, to sort of help us formulate how we express how we feel, right? But, mainstream politics, and again, the reason why Mobilize Justice was sort of created was to have a safe space where we could talk to us and be intentional and not afraid to acknowledge that the smartest people come from these same communities that we're talking about.
Right. When you see Killer Mike on stage and he's using verbiage that they can understand on CNN, but also we can understand because we may not have been privy to some of the things that have been under a blanket for a long time.
Absolutely. And they build walls around that type of stuff, right? Again, I'm not the suit wearing dude, but I can give it to you whichever way you want it, right?
Same.
Right. I can give you Ivy League, I can give you community college, I can give you HBCU, I can give you street, whatever. But again, mainstream politics, mainstream organizations, they're not taking no risks as they consider risks, or no chances even communicating with us, right? So that's why we created Vote or Else, to have a place where we could bring our storytellers, our heroes and sheroes into the community to have a conversation with us in a language that we understand and respond the way we know how to respond.
We need that because we're seeing a lot of us catching voter fatigue. We see the same commercials. A lot of the political commercials seem like a joke to us. They don't connect with us at all. So when you create this type of platform, it gives another energy to somebody to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and vote because they said it sounded like this. They said it should be like this.
Right. Absolutely. And again, like every 4 years, every 2 years, here they come. Right. You don't see them in between.
Oh, you're back.
Right. And I think, again, just about even the use of celebrities. Right. I know you'll see celebrities doing all kind of different stuff. And again, no shade to any celebrity, but we're not bringing John Legend into a prison.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think that connects.
It doesn't.
But we taking Beanie Siegel in that joint.
Right.
Right.
Because he understands.
And been there.
Yeah.
Right. And we believe that directly impacted has more of a connection and impact and value proposition to the people that are impacted and dealing with the same thing right now.
Right.
Right. And Voter Else is sort of the same way, right? How do we connect these artists that are looked at? I mean, we bring a Michael Vick to the hood,
right? And a lot of what I really love about this is because when you're talking about people that may have been in had an issue or two, right? Right. And all circumstances aside, a lot of time these things are circumstantial. We don't have certain things at that we can reach out and grab. We don't have resources that we can use, so that creates challenges. Challenges create opportunities, and sometimes those opportunities land us in the prison systems, right? No, and because we got to use the cheat code, like Jay-Z said, like, okay, I can't go, my father's not a lawyer, right? My mom isn't an attorney, she's not a doctor, she's not a lawyer, right? So we just struggling trying to figure out the next step or the next meal. So you may take a chance, but when you have legislation that understands that, they start to create those different choices for the kids coming up.
Right, exactly. I mean, you talked about challenges, I grew up in there, right? I mean, I'm a product of the same place I'm intentional about going back to, talking to.
Talk to them about that, because people, they may be introduced to you more the first time. They may not understand your story. So let's dive into that a little bit.
So, I mean, born in Philadelphia. My mother, who I don't have a real memory of, she got killed when I was 4 years old. She was addicted to heroin. That was the era where, drugs made people happy. Right.
They trying to
escaping whatever trauma they had to deal with.
We didn't have all the therapy jargon going on. Right.
I grew up for the most part in foster care system. I was in about 6 different foster homes, 3 group homes. I was first arrested when I was 12 years old, entered the juvenile justice system. I'm considered a crossover youth, someone that's been in foster care and transitioned into the juvenile justice system. I was in and out of juvie from 12 to 14. At 14, I was rearrested, did 2 years consecutive in St. Gabriel's Hall in Audubon, Pennsylvania. First time I've ever even acknowledged this, I was molested in juvie from my first counselor, my TSS worker, if you will.
So somebody supposed to be in care of you was taking advantage.
Came home. I did about 3 months home, got locked up for possession. I was hustling for somebody back home. Did 2 years again. In Summit Academy, which they took me further away. Audubon is close to Philly. I got sent to Herman, PA, which is about an hour and a half west of Pittsburgh. So they sent me to the other side of the state. Right. And I actually graduated 18 from a court adjudicated high school, Summit Academy. Okay. It was sort of in that moment, even in those situations, right? Because a lot of what we talk about, even when they talk about Black men in their voting pattern, right? We don't acknowledge trauma, right? Right. And that our community suffers so much trauma. Like, where's the outlet for that trauma, right? And I think for me, it was, I'm carrying all this anger about my mother. I'm carrying all this anger about foster care. I'm carrying this anger about my father not being around. I'm carrying this anger that I'm not there for my siblings. So much anger and trauma. Right. And I made a decision in that moment, like, I'm not going to repeat this. I'm going to find a way to be better. I'm going to take this and do something with it. Yeah. Now, did I know where that would go? No. Only God did. Right. And God did. I got out. My dad came home. He was in a halfway house. I was released to my grandmother, my paternal grandmom. Before she passed away, she took care of me. My dad got involved with politics. So when he was in prison, he was writing letters to different legislators about his ideas around what to do with people who've been in prison. Right. Somebody at the time, John Street, who was city council president of Philadelphia, was running for mayor, and he received one of his letters, and he actually appreciated the ideas that my father presented around returning citizens. Right. So that was a spark that ignited the flame, right? There's no me here without that moment, because in that moment opened up a pathway for my father to be able to bring not just me through the door, but every person that's sort of been touched by the criminal justice system. Yeah. Part of my pathway was he sent me away to the Alex Haley Farm. There's a program called the Children's Defense Fund. Marion Wright Edelman started this program. And at that farm, I was telling your father, I met a guy named Bill Lynch. Yeah. And again, this is one out of thousands of Black people across the country. There. He saw me.
But that's your path.
That's the path.
Yeah.
Bill brought me to New York City. And again, I was telling your father, I didn't even know who this guy Bill Lynch was. It was sort of like, a discernment of trust and eagerness to leave Philly. All I ever knew which is trauma filled.
Right.
And New York was a new start for me.
Right.
I go get with Bill Lynch. This is the guy.
He is really the
Bill
guy.
Lynch was the guy.
Right. Yeah, I got to Google that name.
Bill Lynch was the
The
guy.
guy.
Like the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from Ed Kennedy, who ran for U.S. Senate out of Massachusetts, part of the Kennedy family,
Right.
the Clintons.
Mm-hmm.
He brought Nelson Mandela to New York, to Yankee Stadium.
Right.
Right? The guy. So as I'm learning this and I'm working for him, it's almost like there's a line of black men that he mentored and tutelage. I was like the last one, right? And he was older, mentoring me,
right?
But that changed my life. That changed my access point, my trajectory forever,
right?
Right? And I always tell people when I go back into foster homes or group homes and talk, the only thing that's prevented our communities from reaching that level of success is access to a path.
Right.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to bring it back to vote or else, that's sort of what we're talking about. These communities aren't uneducated. They're not stupid.
They're underserved.
They're not uninterested.
Right.
They're responding to the shit that's happening in their communities every day.
Right.
Men got to take care of families. Women got to take care of these kids. They got to protect them. They got to survive themselves.
Right.
They got to fight for opportunity, fight for access. And again, that's against the backdrop of all the stigmas that they already dealing with to begin with.
That's the walk around anxiety, anger, and depression that you don't even know you're dealing with.
Exactly. And that's all the shit that we carry. So when it comes to like elections,
right?
It's like, man,
come on. I'm trying to make sure.
How's voting for you going to feed them?
Right.
How's voting for you going to get me to work tomorrow? My car just broke down. I ain't even got a car. How's voting for you going to get that trash out my front? And again, we got to know the levers that unlock what door.
Right.
Because elections do matter.
And
but
we got to know how they matter to us.
Absolutely. And I don't think there's been a mainstream organization or otherwise that has been intentional just about that.
Yeah.
Educating, focusing, targeting those communities, right? Because even Black culture, and I believe the word culture has been stolen and it's turned to something different. Yeah. But when I talk about culture, I'm talking about the hood. Yeah. I'm talking about the projects. I'm talking about the fact that we'll spend our last $200 on some new kicks so we don't go to school and getting clowned. I'm talking about that culture, the shit that we come from that we know still exists, right? And until now, with Mobilized Justice and what we're doing, like that's our intentionality. Yeah. Like no disrespect to anybody. We're not trying to go to the HBCUs and talk to the student government. They're already educated. They already focused. We try to talk to the people who I call the neglected majority, because if you put together a coalition of the inner city, streets, hood, if you will, pair that with people who've been touched by the criminal justice system, paired with people who've been impacted by the foster care system, people who've been impacted by the juvenile justice system, people who have lost parents and close relatives to gun violence, people who have been perpetrators of gun violence.
Right.
You bring all that under one roof and you actually spend time, money to educate, to prepare them. Whew.
That's powerful because, like you said, it's the unspoken
what
majority. None. You can't.
And we run our own people.
Right. Because like you said, every day is 64. And when you go back to that, we used to have those types of people inside of the hood that would mobilize. When you talk about the Panther Party, NOI, talk about powerful organizations that knew that our people all they need is some information.
That's it.
For them to know, hey, this does work for you if we do it this way.
Information, a tutorial on how to access the information, how to fulfill the requirements once you obtain the information.
Right.
In a doorway where they could walk through with the information that they gathered to put it somewhere that could take them somewhere else.
Right.
That's it.
That's it. And it also, just like you said, when you went to the farm, it was a change of scenery for you, right?
Totally.
Right. It expands your mind frame. So when you take people in the hood, even if they're in the hood, in part of the culture, the way you define it, and you give them more information, that also expands the mind and it gives them more things.
Absolutely. That was my first time outside the city in a large mass of Black people from around the country. And again, it was a culture shock, right? Yeah. My first 2 days, I'm side-eyeing niggas. I ain't, I'm from Philly.
That's where we come from. I'm still to this day, when I sit down in a restaurant, my back's not to the door. I'm counting how many people's in there. Right. And even if I'm in a nice part of town, you're just hardwired that way. Right. I was joking with my pops today. We went out to go look at some property at the farm, right? And I said, I'm so relaxed out here. I've really left the windows open and my car keys inside the cup holder. Word. That's crazy to me.
That's where we come from.
Right.
It's our norm, it's our pattern. And I think, again, when it comes to like elections and politics in general, all these strategists they hire and communications directors,
Right.
they pay these people so much money to think about all the wrong shit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because none of what they think about, none of what they strategize trickulates down to the places that we're going.
And the people that can actually make change and drive.
And again, and they're scared of those people that can actually drive change in those communities because they're not controlled by the systems that's been in place, right? They're not uniform to them. And that's why then we got Beanie Siegel in the hood with us. We got Icewear Vezo. We bring a Michael Vick to the hood, right? We're working with Smoke Dizza and Wayno, Killer Mike. I mean, we're bringing Black Sam to the hood. Nipsey Hussle, brother.
Right.
The marathon continues.
It does not stop.
And this is what he has said. Nipsey was on before he sadly was taken from us.
Right.
Right. Can you imagine Nipsey down here tomorrow talking about voting or else?
I could, because when I see the lineup that you have and some of the people that you just named, that is the legacy of what Nip was talking about.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's voter else, right? And that's my story, and that's why I'm here. And again, I planted my flag in the ground a long time ago in this game.
Right.
This is who I am. This is where I'm gonna be. This is the people I'm gonna do it for. The people I'm gonna do it with. And take it, love it, leave it. That's what we are.
I love what that is and what it stands for, what it's about. So I wanted to make sure we sat down with you and get the word out about that, because other people want to get involved too. They just may not know how, or they may not know something like this even existed.
Listen, I used to, early in my, I guess, political career, if you will, I used to go to events and give out my cell number, right? Because it's like, again, like, the one thing, I may get in trouble for saying this, Reece, but
it's fine. It's a safe
even
space.
The people that become activists, some professional activists, some activists by necessity because of their environment that they survive.
Right. And they want to really make a change because it really affects the people around them.
Some people in this because activism has become celebritized in itself.
Yes.
People getting real checks off of activism.
They are.
And I'm not knocking nobody for earning your money. A day's work is worth an earned profit.
It's good to be able to get paid for things you're passionate about.
Absolutely.
But you got to be in the right place. And that's what I think you're going.
And you can't become what you are advocating, fighting against. So when I go back to saying that I get my cell phone number out, like, I'll answer every text, every call, every email. Like, that's how you build community. Right. That's how I was taught. Right? If all I'm telling you is to follow me on the gram, that's just saying I'm trying to get my followers up so I can look cool. Right. Nah. Hit me on email, mbingjr@gmail.com. Right?
That's real connection, but that's real community.
You know what I'm saying?
Talk about
that's when I've been on that.
But you are a person who, like you said, didn't have the access. Now you understand how important it is. Right. Once I get the access, I get the opportunities because I see them.
Absolutely.
You understand that firsthand. Facts. So that's why I think you move a certain way.
I mean, even when you get the access, right, there's barriers every step of the way. Right. There's people in politics that don't want me to even exist. Right. Because I'm the person that's challenging everything that they're in rooms saying that they do and stand for, but we know they don't. Right. Right. I just posted something yesterday on my gram. Jay had a song, Bam. He said, we the people that's doing what y'all say y'all did. Right. And we just still the people doing what you said you did. Right. So it's like, that's us.
Well, a lot of times people in those positions, they get the check and then they come to you and they say, hey, how can we do this? Right. And then they cut you a smaller check to do their job.
Right. And they take all the credit.
Yeah.
Right. Our thing now is like, no, put that money in the community, right? Y'all hiring people in other states to come into these communities. Go talk to the tenant president over these projects, the block captain, hire their grandson, their nephew, right? Let's get some of these young brothers who coming back in this community. Let's get some of the older kids that's in foster care, right? 18, 19, right? Let's give them some money, right? Because they know the community. They've been there, they walk it, they live it, they survive it, right? Empower them. And that's the whole mantra of Voter Else. Empowering our communities by the people we see credible to bring resources to educate back into the same communities.
Bars. Period. I love it.
Period.
Man, everything you're saying, it hits so close because you have people that can be affected directly by what you're bringing. Right. Yes. And then you got a racist going on that's so fueled with hate that we have to understand what's going on. It's bigger than just a candidate and what we see on the surface.
Right.
What are some of the
Beans, me and Beans go through this all the time where we do have a presidential election that has critical consequences. Yes. On either side. Right?
Yeah.
As a community that's looked at the way we're looked at, we have to put people on notice that we exist.
Yeah.
Voting is a lever that does that. right?
I think also it does something else. If you see that community that does exist that people want to ignore, get ignited and vote, then they say, oh, they will unify, or they will be mobilized.
Right.
So now we have to pay attention to them. And
Absolutely.
that's not just during voting time. That's everything leading up to the next vote.
But there's always voting.
Yeah.
Presidentials this year, next year's mayoral, next year's district attorney, right? And some of these elections have a much more direct impact to your day-to-day lives than even president, right? Who's your sheriff? Who's your district attorney? Who's your attorney general?
Right.
Who's your governor? Who's your mayor? Who's your city council person?
Yeah.
Who's your state rep? Everybody that's out there saying that they're this, it's our job to hold them accountable, even to the places that they want to ignore and look at as non-essential. Right?
Those are the most essential places.
Those are the most essential.
Because everybody stands on pretty much three things all the time: finance, crime, education.
Period.
Yeah.
And most of them ain't even put in a single bill to address either of the three.
Especially in the neighborhoods we talking about.
Exactly.
So that's why it's so important to vote or else.
Vote or else.
That's it, Mark. Appreciate you,
my brother Reec. Thank you.
Telling you.
Love.
Make sure you guys follow this guy, not just for the clout, because he's really making things going on in the city. So follow him across all social media platforms. Go ahead, give him everywhere to catch you at.
Well, first I want y'all to follow Mobilize Justice on Instagram. Follow the hashtag vote or else. You'll see our work. You can follow us there. Personally, my page is blocked, but if you choose to follow, I'm definitely engaging at Marvin Bing, full name spelled straight out. And again, thanks Reec for the opportunity. Love that you in the hood with this too. Like Absolutely. You're not in the fancy tower. Nah. Like we had to come to the community. Right.
I think y'all was at the fancy tower first while I work at.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable.
We get a little bit close. We get a little bit closer to the people.
It's comfortable. Yeah. But love, thank you.
No doubt, man. I appreciate everything you're doing. Once again, I want to say that be very intentional about that, because what this brother's doing right here could be an inspiration to many to come out of foster care system, to come from so many adverse situations and still being able to climb forward and then grab other people up. It's commendable, man. These are people we got to protect at all costs. We hit the hype bell for that, and we up out of here. We gone.